If you're a TypeScript developer like me, then let me tell you, Zod is a library that you must need to know. So what is Zod? So Zod is a runtime library that helps you decide the values inside the data and to derive the shape of data. So in real world scenarios, it could be a case like you get some data from the external things like a web service or a webhook, or it could be like some user form. So you want to like tell your application that this data coming, it need to have this shape, it need to have this properties, that property is going to be of this data type. So that's what Zod does. It passes that data and it infers the type out of that data. It does that very magically. And this is actually a really good feature that you can leverage for multiple use cases. It basically gives you full control over the data that is traveling from various parts of your application, and you always know that what is the data type of a particular piece of object. And with that, basically you can avoid a runtime errors. And I think type safety is something that we try to achieve. It's a fundamental principle of the TypeScript entirely, and the Zod works perfectly well with the TypeScript, and it makes your code look more clean and more intuitive. And before I start with the actual coding, a humble request to guys who are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I don't get any financial benefits out of it, but seeing that support from you guys, it cheers me and motivate me to do a similar kind of content in the future. And let's initialize the new project. So I'll use pnpm init, and this should give me a new package.json which has a bunch of things inside it. Okay, so I'm going to add the important library, which is Zod. So pnpm add Zod will give me a library, and pnpm is really quick. If you're interested to know like how to set up the pnpm or migrate from yarn to npm to pnpm, then do consider watching this video. This is really interesting video where I describe the package manager scenario in detail. Okay, let's come back to our topic of the Zod. So Zod is added, and I will add TypeScript as a dev dependency because I just need for the development. It's not a runtime dependency. So I'll just simply say save and dev, and it should add that. And I think I forgot to put add over here. So it should add that in the dev dependencies. Okay, cool. We are fine there. Now we'll create a new file here. So let's call this as a index dot. And what I'm going to do here in the script is just put a command for the start. So I'll put like whenever I do whenever I do pnpm start, then I want to do a tsc. I want to compile my index.ts, and after that I want to run it as a like index.js. I will transpile that to JavaScript, and then we'll run it as a JavaScript application. So that's what we are going to do. Let's see if this works. I'll just put console log and say hey, and I'll do pnpm start, and it should just print out the hey here, which it does. So okay, cool, we are fine there. Now let's get to the real thing. So let's start by using the Zod. So I have simply imported a Zod, and let me show you interesting thing. If I do a pnpm start, then you can see that it will throw a bunch of errors because of the Zod, and those errors are originating from the Zod library, as you can see here. And that is because we are importing a Zod, and so Zod basically relies on the TS configuration, and in order to make itself work well, it basically reads the TS configuration that we don't have in our application. So you can use this simple command to generate the TS config, which is basically npx-p typescript tsc init, which will give you a TS config file. So as you can see that it generated a TS config file, and it has a bunch of options inside it. And the main important thing that you need to have in your Zod application is this strict equals to true. You mandatorily need to have this strict equals to true in your tsconfig.json. If it's not there, then the Zod is not going to behave well. Okay, so that's something that you need to know. I can just import it, and let me show you. If I do pnpm start, I should not have that error anymore. Okay, so this looks good. Now we'll do a simple use case. So what I want to show you is I will take one wishlist object, which will basically just a string. And the real world scenario is also like if you are getting a data from somewhere else, some external service, then you get it in the same form. So I want to like get a string, want to define the product schema, wishlist schema using a Zod, and I want to show like how it passes that, how it processes it, and how your job becomes easy and the code looks clean. Okay, so I'll define a product schema like this. So I have a Zod object. As you can see here, I'm using a Zod.object, and inside the product schema, I'm going to have a name and description. Name is going to be string, description is going to be also a string. Then I'm going to have a wishlist schema. Inside a wishlist, it is again an object, and that consists of the created at, which is going to be a date, and then updated at, which is basically again a date, but it's optional. Like if you are creating a any wish list at the first time, then you're not going to have updated at, or maybe you can even put, but it's optional. Actually, it doesn't make more sense. And the wishlist ID, which is the string and not just a normal string, it is UUID. So that's why I'm putting it has to be UUID. And when I say this to Zod, then Zod does that validation behind the scene and it takes that headache from you. Like, this is the beauty of it. Okay, and the products is going to be a array of product schema that I have over here. So this is how you can, refer the, okay, so I'm going to have a wishlist data as a string, as I'm saying, and you have like created at like this wishlist ID, which is UID products. Then the products is array, as I said, and it has a name and description. And if you see my string, I intentionally ignore the create updated at from here because that is optional. I want to see if that Zod treat that as optional or not. Then I will put a wish list like this, and wish list schema.pass, and I will just simply pass a JSON string, and then we'll pass it to the Zod, and from that it's a Zod job to check that whether this object has these things, whether it is sufficing all the validation or not. And I will just console log this just so that you can see it. So let me run my project and see whether it does a job. Wow, and it happened in the first go. Interesting. So I have created at wishlist ID and the products and all that. It has basically passed that. Just to show you a negative case, what I will do is I'll intentionally introduce some error. So let's say I have a name and something. So what if I just change or add some typo here in the name and run it? Then you will probably see an error and it says that unrecognized key in an object namey. So that basically is because it failed to understand like what is the name. And that's where Zod takes out this headache of from you as a developer, that you don't have to put your custom validation on the property name and all that. It will basically infer all the things. And the magic of this is you can access all the properties later like this, because it is the Typescript type. You get access to like all the properties that you usually do with a schema created with a type. So yeah, you get access like this. And if I do wishlist.products, then I'll probably see only the products from it, which is basically what I see and which is basically is happening. So it's completely functional and very safe. Sort some of the advanced structure. So you can basically play around with the dates. You can pass the date, which can be in a complex format like this. You have the millisecond and the more detailed timestamp. You can parse that. You have support for IP addresses, and there are a bunch of other things that you can explore on the documentation. I will not go through a detail in each of it, but what I'm trying to say is there's a support for most of the elements that you will ever need in your project. So you can just use this document and we'll get to know. So that was all about the Zod, and I hope you may find this video useful. If you have any questions, to let me know in the comment section. And if you like this video, subscribing is a really good way to show us support. Thank you for watching and have a great time.